Hello everyone, welcome to the Engineering, Computation and Instrumentation 4th lab. Today we will know how to calculate the average, variance and standard deviation of elements inside an array. Let's start by giving a brief introduction about the for loop in C++ programming. When you know exactly how many times you want to loop through a block of code, you can use the for loop. The syntax of writing for loop function is written following this way. So we write for, and after that we have three statements. The first statement is executed one time before the execution of the block code. The second statement defines the condition for executing the code block. And the third statement is executed every time after the code block has been executed. For example, we want to print the numbers from 0 to 4. So we know now the number of repetitions of our block of code. So we want to print from 0 to 4. So we will repeat our code for 5 times. How can we do it? Sure, we can do it using the for loop as shown in this example. So we will write for integer I equal to 0. This is our first statement. This statement sets a variable before the loop starts. And we execute this statement one time before the execution of our block of code. The second statement here, I less than 5, is used to define our condition for the loop to run. So I must be less than 5 in order to execute this block of code. If this condition is true, the loop will start over again. If it is false, the loop will end. So in our example here, we have our initial value of I is to equal 0. So I is less than 5. So our condition is true. So we will print out, see out the value of I. So we will print out 0. So after the execution of the block of code, we will execute the third statement. Here we have I++, which means that increment the value of I or add 1 to the value of I each time the code block in this loop has been executed. So after we print out the value of I equals 0, we will add 1 to the value of I, will increment I, so I now is equal 1, and return again to check our condition. 1 is less than 5, so we will execute the block of code. So we will print out the value of I, which is 1, and after that we will increment I, and so on until we print number 4. Now let's talk about C++ arrays. Arrays are used to store multiple values in a single variable instead of declaring separate variables for each value. To declare an array, we define variable type and then specify the name of the array followed by square brackets. These square brackets will tell us the number of elements inside the array or the size of this array. So for example, we have here string. String is the type of our variable. Cars is the name of our variable, and between two square brackets, we define the number of elements inside this array. So the array cars contains 4 elements. You can access an array element by referring to the index number. Remember from our first lab, we use the index to refer to the elements inside the arrays. Remember also, we count in C++ from 0, not from 1. So index of 0 refers to the first element inside our array. Element of 1 is the second element of our array. For example, here we have string cars of 4. So we have an array called cars and has 4 elements, and these are the 4 string elements. And we want to print out cars of 0. Cars of 0 means that the first element inside the array cars. So here we will print Volvo. Okay, so remember, we use index to refer to the elements inside the array, and we start counting of the elements inside the array from 0, not from 1. You can loop through the array elements with the using of for loop. For example, if you want to enter the elements of an array of 4 integer numbers, you can use the for loop to do it. So as you see in this example, we start by declaring our array. So we write integer numbers of 4. So integers is the array type, and the numbers is our array name. and 4 is the number of elements inside this array numbers, and we want to enter the value, the integer value of each element in this array. So we can use the for loop as you see here. So we start by set an initial value to our index. So we set our initial value of our index to equal 0 as you see here. This statement will be executed one time before the execution of our block code, and after that we will check our condition in the second statement. If I is less than 4, yes, I is equal to 0, 0 is less than 4, so we will execute this block code. So we will enter the value of the number of 0, which is the value of the first element of our array, and after that we will execute statement 3. We will increment the value of I. So I now its value will be 1, and return back to the second statement to check our condition. 1 is less than 4, so we will execute our block of code. So we will enter the value of numbers of 1, which is the value of the second element, and so on until this condition will be false. So we will exit from this for loop. Another example, if we want to sum the elements of this array numbers using the for loop. So what we can do, so we will define a new variable which is called sum, integer sum, and set an initial value to it to equal 0, and start using the for loop to make this summation. So we start by setting an initial value to our index I to equal to 0, and after that we will check our condition. If I less than 4, 0 is less than 4, so we will execute this block of code. So we will our block of code, we write here sum equal to sum plus numbers of I. So we will add sum, which is equal to 0, with the first element inside the array numbers. Okay, so the value of sum now is equal to the value of the first element inside the array numbers, and after that we will execute the third statement. We will increment I, so the value of I will be 1. 1 is less than 4, so we will execute this block of code again. We will add sum. Sum now the value of sum is the value of the first element inside our array. We will add this value with the value of numbers of 1, which is the second element in our array. So we will add the first element of our array with the second element of the second array of our array. Sorry. So after that we will increment I will be equal to 2. 2 is less than 4, so we will add the value of sum. The value of sum is equal to the value of the summation of the first element of our array plus the second element of our array. We will add this value with the value of numbers of 2, which is the third element of our array. So the value of sum now contains the value of the summation of the first and the second and the third elements of our array. After that we will increment I will be equal to 3. 3 is less than 4, so we will add the value of sum. Sum contains the summation of the first and second and the third elements of our array plus numbers of 3, which contains the value of the fourth element of our array. So after that we will increment I will be equal 4. 4 is less than 4, no, so this condition is false. So we will exit from this for loop, and we will print out the value of the summations of all elements of our array. We can, instead of using sum equal to sum plus numbers of I, you can write this command sum plus equal numbers of I is the same as to write sum equal sum plus numbers I. So these two lines will give us the same results. So instead of writing sum equal sum plus numbers of I, you can write sum plus equal numbers of I. Now let's talk about what is required from you in Lab 4 exercise. In Lab 4 exercise, you are required to write a C++ program that asks the user how many numbers he or she wishes to find the statistics of, and then asks the user to enter those numbers. The program must then calculate and display the average, variance, and the standard deviation of the numbers entered by the user. So your program must ask the user how many numbers they wish to find the statistics of. So at first, you will use the cout object to ask the user about how many numbers they wish to find the statistic of, and then you will use the cin object to read this value. After that, you will ask the user to enter those numbers and store them in an array. So you are required to declare an array, and after that you are required to enter the value of the elements of this array. I think you can follow the same way as we did in our previous example. Then you will use the for loop to calculate the average of the numbers. In order to be able to calculate the average of the number, we will take the summations of all the elements inside our array and divide them by the number of elements of our array. I think also you can make the summation process as we did in our previous example. And after that, you are required to calculate the variance of the number. Variance of the numbers is the average squared distance of each element of our array from the mean. So I think also you can follow the same ways as we did in our previous example. So this process is like the summation process, and here we have to make the square power of 2. So you can use the function power of 2 to calculate the square of a function, and after that you are required to calculate the standard deviations of the number. The standard deviation is the square root of the variance. So here you can use the function square root function of the C++, which can be written as you see here, sqrt. So this function can calculate the square root of the variance in order to calculate the standard deviation. And at the end, you are required to display the values of the average, variance, and the standard deviations of the number. Don't forget to follow the same output format, character by character, as given to you in the lab manual file. I hope everything is clear to you. Thank you.